Lesson 3.5, showing lines are parallel. So suppose that we have these two lines, they're cut by transversal, and we have a pair of corresponding angles congruent. Are the two lines parallel? So this question is going to ask the converse of the corresponding angles postulate. Is it true? The converse of an if-then statement is the statement formed by switching the hypothesis and the conclusion. So look at the statement. If you live in Sacramento, then you live in California. The hypothesis, you live in Sacramento. The conclusion, you live in California. The converse would be, if you live in California, then you live in Sacramento. The converse of a true statement, which is the original statement, may or may not be true. If we look at the map, you can see that I can live in California, but I don't necessarily have to live in Sacramento. I could live anywhere else. I could live in San Diego. I could live in Fresno. So the converse of that statement is not true. So the first thing we're going to do is write the converse of a statement. So the statement is, if two segments are congruent, then the two segments have the same length. So first thing we're going to do is identify the hypothesis and the conclusion. So I'm going to bring the blue after the if. So this would be if two segments have the same length, then the two segments are congruent. Is that true? Yes, it's true. So I want you to pause the video and write the converse of the three statements below. After you've written the converse, make sure that you determine if it's a true statement. In this third one, I can have two angles congruent. They could measure 30 degrees, so they don't have to be right angles. So this would be a false statement. This leads us into the corresponding angles converse. Remember, if we had two parallel lines cut by transversal, corresponding angles were congruent. Now we're going to look at if we have the corresponding angles congruent, then our two lines are parallel. So looking at example 2, we're going to determine in these examples if there's enough information to conclude that our lines are parallel. So we're specifically looking for corresponding angles to be congruent. So in the first one, there are corresponding angles. They are congruent. So yes, lines are parallel. In the second one, I'm looking for the corresponding angle with 60. There's not enough info. And the last one, I'm looking for corresponding, but this angle right here, I can find from it being a linear pair. So yes, I do have corresponding angles congruent. So yes, those lines would be parallel. So I need you to pause the video and you try the next three. Okay, so hopefully they worked out for you. Make sure that you ask questions if that seems confusing. Now we're going to add to our converse theorems, and we have the alternate interior angles converse and the alternate exterior angles converse. So they say basically that if you have alternate interior angles congruent, then our lines are parallel. The same thing with the alternate exterior angles. If you have alternate exterior angles congruent, then the lines are parallel. So our conclusion is always going to be in this section that our lines are parallel. So looking at identifying if we have parallel lines. So in example A, I have alternate interior angles congruent. So yes, lines are parallel. In the second example, I have nothing angle-wise off of line M. So I don't know anything about them. There's not enough information. So you determine, does the diagram give enough information to conclude the lines are parallel? And we have one more, which is the same side interior angles converse. So it basically says that if we have those same side angles supplementary, then my lines are parallel. We're going to work in an algebra example. So I look at my angles. I have 5x and 115. They are in the same side interior position. So they must be supplementary in order for those lines to be parallel. Subtract 115 and divide by 5. You have 3 examples to try. Okay, recall that our assignment has been modified. And our concept check. How can you use corresponding angles to prove 2 lines parallel? Corresponding angles are congruent. Then the 2 lines are parallel. Okay, and this concludes lesson 3-5.